Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Susan Wilson with Informatica. I'm the Vice President of the Data Governance and Privacy segment, and we are partnering with the CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Cathy Doss, Chief Data Officer for the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. Cathy, welcome, and maybe you can do an introduction for our audience today.
Absolutely. I am as you said, the Chief Data Officer for the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. And my everyday job is making sure that my businesses have the data they need, that it's easy to find and ready to use.
How do you measure and communicate the value of data? How do you personalize that?
Yeah, it really is about, what is the value? And, oftentimes I think we get lost in reports. I run reports. I have a report that shows how many times we did this thing. And my question, and actually my teammates have Post-it notes on their computers that say, "So what?" with a question mark.
I love that. I was just thinking that, and you said it.
And oftentimes, right, when we get lost in our own jargon, one of them will pull the Post-it note off and stick it in front of the camera. And it's a great reminder to all of us, which is, not only can the data, confirm or deny what's been working, but it's also about what are we going to do about it? And I think that is one of the most important things that comes out of all of this.
Oh, I love that. I've been also experiencing some of that within our own organization, and I've been saying, don't send me another report. You got to tell me the so what. I mean, I'm inundated with all of this data, but it's like data rich, information poor. Like, give me the so what. I love that, Cathy. That's great. And the Post-it note is a great visual reminder. Value delivery is dependent upon relationships between the digital, the data, the analytics, the organizational strategies and execution, like connecting the dots, right? How do you map and link these dependencies to understand the value chain of data?
So I always start with the business strategy. And, it's been interesting over the last couple of years because data strategy, I hear it at the conferences. I hear everybody talking about the data strategy. But to me, you have to start with the business strategy and then how is the data going to support that? And that to me is what a data strategy is, which is how do we line it all up so that it supports it. And I live in a world of what I call my three-legged stool, which is it's the business, it's the technology, and the data that comes out of that technology. And all of that should be supporting that business strategy.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. There was, we've also looked at things like people, process, technology, and data all being core, so important, and the business strategy being the thing that grounds us. Without it, you don't have that so what that we just talked about, which is so critical for change management, culture, and really delivering data-driven insights.
Well, and sometimes you actually have to help the business put what they're trying to do into that strategy, right? You have to, once again, put on your business hat for a while. And if they're not telling you what you want to hear, then how do you help them shape where they're trying to go, keeping in mind we're going to have to line up the data and the technology to support that along with the people in the process. And once again, it's why that critical piece of understanding the businesses that you support, not just data, but the business itself and where you're trying to get to.
Absolutely. Can you share some examples of value generation that you've delivered with your team?
I'm gonna step out of my current role and think kind of more generalistic of the things that I've done in my past. But the one I think that most people will be able to relate to has to do with direct marketing, right? We all still, as much as you sort of giggle about it, we all still get mail in our mailboxes for direct marketing offers. And I actually had the fortune to work with an organization where we were a startup. And it was really all about, what were we trying to accomplish? Obviously, we were trying to sell our product. And I'm not sure I truly understood the value of everything that I was doing at that moment. I do now, but hopefully this will be helpful to folks. I made sure we tracked every single piece of data about everything that we did, and I did it with quality. And I can't emphasize that enough. I made sure that there were standards on every field, that there was no way that I would have to go back and fix data just to run a report, do an analysis, find the insights. And the way we set it up was we were able to test and learn. And that is what direct marketing is all about. What's working, what's not working. We measured, we corrected, we retest. And, it was one of those of, it worked. We found the niche in the market. And we actually took a startup and turned it into a Fortune 500 company. And so I think putting that pivotal piece in from data played a huge role in us being able to see immediately what was working and what wasn't working.
It's great. And, I think that one thing that we're seeing in those conversations, I mean, you're looking at the facts, right? You're not just taking anecdotal evidence, or you're just looking at the latest, trend. By looking at the data, you can really get a rich set of conversations and debate, right? Which we love to get that point of view. Love that story. Because value delivery requires managing also expectations of different stakeholder groups. I mean, sometimes there's diverse points of view and whatnot. Any best practices for communicating and educating various groups on the value of data and analytics?
I think it starts with listening. It really is truly not leading with data and analytics, but it's listening and asking really good questions, so that you can find those business relevant examples. And, once again, while you're listening, it's not listening for the sake of just, I want to hear Susan talk, but it's listening to be a student of the business, to be able to speak like them, to think like them. And then I really think the best thing that you can do is use business relevant examples. So Susan, you mentioned earlier that, you're trying to get people to the so what. And a lot of times that's the piece that's left out, right? And if you can find a business relevant example where Susan hands you a report and you go, I wouldn't do this to you, Susan, but so what? But I would say, well, but Susan, what does this mean to you? Like, what are you looking for? And, I honestly, I worked at an organization at one point where the head of the organization could literally look at just a myriad of numbers on a piece of paper and find the one number that was the so what. And I use that example over and over again with my team, which is that's our job. Our job is to find that one number that tells you, Susan, where you need to go from a leadership perspective moving forward. I don't want you to look for it. I want to know your business well enough to know this is that pivotal piece of data that will change your world. And I really do think that is, the best way to communicate is in something that's relevant to you. And I'm only going to get there by listening to you and by being a student of your business. And actually, when you look to me, that I'm being seen as a peer in your business, not some person who's pushing this data agenda. So.
Cathy, gosh, it's such a pleasure having you today. I want to thank you so much for your insights. Thank you. And for our audience today, please visit cdomagazine.tech for more of Cathy's interviews, as well as additional interviews from other CDOs as a part of this series. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
Thank you, Cathy.